Recording in progress.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to call this regular Board of Finance meeting for Monday, December 20th, 2021 to order. First item on our agenda this evening is to receive the report on the Town of Guilford Energy Performance Contract Year 2 energy savings. So we're going to kick off with Aaron Alibrio and John Sanborn. Both are on our joining us virtually this evening to go over the 2-year energy savings report. John, if you want to share the screen, or Aaron, John, I'll just hand the floor over to you to provide the presentation.
Yeah, no, great. I
Thank you.
appreciate that. We understand that you do have the full report that was sent out to you. And so we're just going to go from a high level, a couple of slides, and then take any questions that you may have. I'll turn it over to John. John, can you share your screen? John, you want to put that in slide view? Go to the next page, please.
You guys are seeing it, we're not.
Yeah.
Aaron, you guys are seeing it, we're not, so.
Okay. That's not going to be very helpful.
Do you all see it on the video?
Just think, yes, I can see it from my screen.
Okay.
Check under more.
Turn your screen around and face us.
Your content.
Mhm.
Change you.
I don't think so.
Mike, I think there's a content button on your
There
controller.
you go.
Got it.
Yeah.
Just as
Okay.
you said it, I got it.
Right.
Perfect timing. We're good.
Great. So this is not that long of a presentation, and we're happy to take questions. You can interrupt at any time, but essentially we're in year 3, and we've finished the reconciliation of year 2, and that's what we're here to talk about tonight. And just setting the table with regards to this, December 22nd, 2017, the contract was signed, and then we went into construction mode across 28 town and school buildings. And there was a robust amount of energy infrastructure improvement measures, as well as a solar PV, which John's going to take us through at a very high level where all of the savings associated with this are. It was a $9.5 million project. There was some deducts with regards to the amount of solar that could be deployed. But I think we've wrapped this up sometime in June, John, I think it was. And we're fully recognizing a significant amount of savings. Go to the next slide, John. This one is a little bit of an eyesore. I'm going to let John walk through each columns, and then he can go through the bullet points. John, can you take it?
Sure. Thanks, Aaron. So this table right here that you're looking at is how we track the savings for the project. And as Aaron had mentioned, that tonight we're going to talk about the year 2 timeframe, which is February 2020 through January of 2021. And all the columns to the left of the table are what the guarantee was based on, or what the projected savings were. And then the columns to the right of the table in green are your actual results. So there's a few things going on. There's all the energy conservation measures that we call your measured energy cost avoidance that we spend time measuring, verifying those savings. There's O&M cost avoidance, things like savings on your new lights that are longer run hours, so don't have to replace them as much. So there's O&M component there. And there's the ZREC, or renewable energy credits, that are being generated from the solar PV systems that were installed. There was a slight adjustment, as Aaron talked about, as we work to reconcile the construction project. And then there was quite a large energy rebate of 500,000 that we guaranteed. And then going over into the actual achieved savings, when we put that all together, all the different categories, as you can see in the over under guarantee, we just exceeded the year 2 guarantee by 11,331. But although it was a net positive savings, the energy incentive stood on its own. And as you can see, we only got to 470. So Johnson Controls issued a check back to Guilford for the difference of 29,706. So specifically in year 2, one of the highlights were about a 14% better than expected solar PV generation, as well as ZREC benefit. As you can see, over 207,000 in savings versus 181 expected. So just the energy savings alone, over $500,000, and this is kind of breaks it up by building across the town and school buildings. As you can see, big street lighting component, and then the rest of the kind of larger items fall onto your school buildings, and that's going to be the interior and exterior LED lighting upgrades, as well as the solar PV generation and ZREC revenue that goes along with that. So here's kind of an aerial view of all the solar installations that Aaron and I thought looked pretty neat. And so we just grabbed them on here just to kind of give you an idea of the magnitude of each of the systems. The high school being your biggest at almost 0.5 megawatt of solar PV spread across here on the top left across the roofs. And then other systems across Adams, Melissa Jones, Cox Elementary School, and Lakes that they're similar in the about 114 kW range, but as you can see, spread out nicely across the other roofs. And there was an additional 145, which you don't see in this picture, at Melissa Jones School that was completed just this past summer, for a total installed capacity of just over 1 megawatt of solar PV. So I just want to include some of kind of the measurement and verification activities that take place. One of the highlights here is there's a couple charts here. This is of your Melissa Jones heating system, and the trend on the top is a zone temperature trend. And what we're looking for and what we can see in this trend from February through the spring is your night and weekend temperature setback. So these are the kind of the temperature control strategies that we put in place. And we could see from this trend the 5 days of school days, and then the weekend where it drops down. So these are kind of the control strategies we look to verify throughout the performance years. Likewise, on the bottom, this is a runtime of a heat pump in the Melissa Jones School. As you can see, the school days where it's running, off at night, and off on the weekends. And so next couple of slides are just some of your actual utility bills on the electricity side. So this one is the school facilities only. We broke it out between school facilities and town facilities, or down on the next slide. But we have a base year of consumption. This is just consumption, not cost. So your electricity, I think I'm going, D. Jacob has entered the waiting room. So the first thing we do is that we analyze a base year before we do any work to the buildings, and that base year for this project was the 2015-2016 timeframe. And so what this chart's doing is it looks at your base year usage, and then during the performance years, we track that as well. So what we've seen is a large, obviously, large electrical usage decreases, especially into this year too. For example, Guilford High School, 45% reduction, Melissa Jones, a 55% reduction, and Adams at 42% reduction. But a similar trend across all the buildings. And similar on the town side as well. So this is really the end of the presentation we have for you. Just a couple of notes was that the additional, and I kind of touched on this, the additional 145 kW at Melissa Jones has been completed this summer, making the total solar PV of just over a megawatt. So we're tracking that system as well, as well as the ZREX. And we are in the year 3 M&V period, which is coming to end very soon here in January. So next step would be to finish the year 3 report, review it with ECG, who is your owner's rep, and then deliver that report back to you in a similar fashion.
Thanks, John. Any high-level questions? You probably, I'm sure, haven't read through the report yet.
No, I got a couple of questions. I skimmed through it. It was a bigger report than I thought it was going to be, but I was curious about year 1. Was that affected because things weren't finished? And is that why we came up kind of a little short in year 1?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we had to take a look at some of the solar that couldn't be deployed based upon structural, and then we were trying to find a suitable other building to deploy those. And so that's part of the reason, as well as some of the additional construction timelines that fell out of a 12-year or 18-month, if you will.
Does that make the 20-year cycle extend out a little because we had a partial year first year?
It doesn't change the terms of the financing structure. That's why the measurement started per the contract, which was aligned, if you will, with the borrowing.
Okay, I see. So the 20 years is tied to the financing.
Yep.
Okay. And then I was trying to get a little bit into the methodology to figure out how much we saved. And I was curious if you could kind of hear what I got out of the report and tell me if it's even close to right. It seemed like you took a sampling, for instance, of the lighting, and you would look at each type of light fixture and figure out some kind of delta between the original lighting and the newer fixture. And then you would sort of multiply it out and say those were the savings across that particular light fixture. Does that sound right? I was trying to read through that stuff.
Yeah, I'm not going to have John answer that question, only because I'll just keep it layman terms and John can get a little deeper. But yes, when we look at the lighting, I mean, the lighting by building, by fixture type is counted. And then there's a sampling range across all different types of fixtures that are being retrofitted. And then we're putting a line side reading on, changing the light out and putting a line side reading again, then using that data to put into the each of the building and the calculations.
So is your measure per light fixture actual usage or the usage that the manufacturer says that you're going to get out of it?
You mean the life of the life?
No, I mean like when you try to determine how many watts the lighting used, for instance, do you just use what the manufacturer says it's supposed to, how it's supposed to perform, or some kind of actual measure?
Yeah, no, I think I understand. So in the beginning, there's an investment grade audit period that's done. And so we're using data loggers in a good sampling of the buildings to capture the actual run hours of those lights. And then those are what are captured in the measurement and verification portion of the contract. And so that prior to having the guarantee in the contract, we're doing all the upfront work.
Okay. I guess the last question was, I think we got the $500,000 rebate, and was only year 1 and 2, is that correct?
It's a one-time rebate and you didn't,
One time?
one time. You didn't actually get 500. You got 470. We guaranteed the 500, so we cut you a check for the difference.
Okay, and then the solar ZERC credits, those are expected though to run the whole 20-year cycle?
There are 15-year contracts.
So we'll expect somewhere around $86,000 each year
For
for 15?
It's 89,000 of these, but there's a degradation factor of 0.07. And that's part of the savings calcs as well as the ZREC. And right now, as John indicated, we're doing about 14% better across the all array.
Okay, those are my big questions, and you're right on with the answers. I appreciate it.
Great.
So, so my question just is the timing of the next report. If year 2, the period was through January 2021, so now the next period would be 2022. So the next report, how long does it take to generate the report and get all that data back? And because it took us a little time to get this, but I think it's more about getting, we requested it, so we got it. And so we're now finally having this formal presentation about where we stood after year 2. When do we know, get the report on year 3?
John, you're on mute right now, but I believe it's 60 days.
60 days, okay.
We deliver the report to ECG. They go, agree, with all of the calculations, with all the measurements and data collection that's done during the term. And then I guess they'll send it to you or we send it to you based upon their approval.
Right.
So I would imagine you guys could have this by April, right?
April, yeah, I was thinking maybe 3 to 4 months that we'll have year 3 report.
Yeah, happy to
Yeah.
get that report to you. And if you need a little time to digest it, maybe we come the month after.
Yeah, that would be perfect. That would be perfect. It would be great to get this and see how it's trending, because now that we've got year 2 and we understand it better, and we have year 3, and I think April, May would be good timing on that.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just want to confirm something. I know, Aaron, we've talked about this before, but ECG signed off on this report and validated the baseline numbers that you see before you here today. So our owner's rep has been through this
Right.
and said, given it the good housekeeping seal of approval.
Right.
The question I would have for Aaron, and sort of like asking the fox to guard the hen house, but I think we have a 3-year contract with ECG per our original agreement. And we would, the question is, how long do your engagement entities like Guilford typically keep an owner's agent on board to track performance and to assist us in tracking performance?
Yeah, so there is no real industry standard. However, we see the conversations shaping after 3 years of proven savings. And some of those conversations are about, okay, well, it does cost money to keep the measurement verification in. Maybe we want to scale back and focus on, maybe just the solar portion of it as opposed to measuring everything. And that cost would obviously come down. And so we can have those discussions. I think we had our last presentation with regards to this. I think ECG, was agreeable to, stay on. We certainly can have that conversation and circle back with you in a couple of months.
Well, I'm assuming there's motivation for ECG to stay on and perhaps motivation for you to have them not stay on, but that's something I think we'll collectively have to talk about between the 3 boards.
Yeah.
I like the
Yep.
first thing. Yeah, staying on.
Yes, I do too.
I think there's a significant benefit when you're looking at the amount of production that the solar has. And also, you're looking at a static report there. ECG goes through all of our calculations, on your behalf. And they're really doing the yeoman's work here with regards to that and validating it. So, I mean, we have no problem with them staying on. We actually like the fact that they're reviewing it on your behalf. And and they can explain, as well as as we can, but obviously, I mean, they have a fiduciary responsibility for you guys.
Thank you, Aaron.
Does the board have any other questions for Aaron or for John?
I have a question.
Yeah, go
The last graph you showed with all the different, the baseline and the year one and year two, it looks like Cox actually has increased energy usage. Do you know why that is?
John?
There was there was trouble with the cooling tower at that building last winter. And there were some corrections that needed to take place where that cooling tower was running kind of in the winter, actually. But
So are you expecting that will reduce down below the baseline in the next couple of years or?
yeah, we had kind of an all hands on deck on that, and that problem has been fixed. So yeah, I expect that to be down below this year.
Linda Trudeau, the Board of Education Finance Director is here. Linda, do you want to add something to that?
Well, there was an issue with Cox with a meter that was not reporting
Yes.
usage.
That's right.
So when we
So the
corrected
baseline.
that meter
Baseline
and
was
started
off.
reporting it, the usage went up to what it actually is. So what is being reported now is more accurate than
Than the baseline.
in before.
Okay.
Great.
And I'm assuming we didn't go back to Eversource and say we owe you some more money. right?
They put the right cash register in.
Right. Thank you.
Great question. Good pickup. Anything else from the board? Otherwise, thank you very much, Aaron and
Great, thanks.
John. So close to the holidays joining us, and we will look forward to the next report after it's been developed and evaluated and approved from ECG, and we'll go from there.
Great. Have a good evening. Thank you, everybody.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Happy holidays.
Yes.
Thank you, you too.
Okay, moving on. Item number 2, public forum. Anybody wishing to address the board, finance and public forum? Okay. Seeing none. Moving on to item number 3, approved minutes of our regular meeting minutes for November 15th, 2021. Do I hear a motion?
So moved?
Second,
I had a few corrections. I don't know if they're typos or corrections, but there's a couple of items here. So I'll go through mine, and if anybody finds one that I missed. On page 1, I just want to make sure it was noted that the newly elected Board of Finance members were sworn in by Lou Federici and Jeff Beatty. As both of them were involved in that. And I guess more of a little comment to Tracy. I think that there's a few kind of remnant notes that may have appeared in this. That I think it's more just cleanup. So on item number 1, on the election of Chairman Pro Temp, there's a U after Mr. Beatty in the first sentence, which I'm sure that was just a typo or a note. As I scrolled down to item number 3,
Yeah.
there was looked like a note that the U after the first sentence and then the line after that. Same thing for the third paragraph. Same notes. Again, just clean up on that, but, and all of those, it appears that they were reflected in other places, so. I didn't see anything else there. Bob, did you want to add something to that?
no, I don't remember abstaining. Now I realize why I did.
Yeah, okay,
Because it was me.
okay.
I got a small correction on the last page, or is it the second one? Last page, section 10,
Yeah.
third paragraph. I was trying to give some accolades to Mr. Gamerman.
Yes.
That came out of Mr. Gamerman,
Can't miss it.
which kind of sounds cool, but it's Mr. Gamerman. And
He's still got game.
I think you're probably just paraphrasing me, but his contribution to board was staggering. I think his contribution to the board was staggering, and it will be missed. So I got to repeat that anyway, which is good.
That's nice.
There you go.
There's a missing word on page 5. The second paragraph. Mr. Hoey said he was working to change that again on the field last weekend, and it was spectacular. Thank you.
Let me go back. Jumping all over the place. On page 3, right at the bottom. Again, it looks like just a cleanup from notes. On page 7, expenditures, first line. There should be a percentage after 38.5. And the only other item I had was on the last page also, public forum. I think it just should read at the beginning, Mr. Ailes said Veterans Day was last week. When I read that, it sounded like we had Veterans Day last week as a board, which we didn't, the whole country did. So I just referred to that. Anybody else have any other corrections? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or abstentions? Great. Item number 4, correspondence, standing building committee minutes. Number 1, Chairman DeMayo was on. Thank you for your patience. I'm sure you were enthralled with that presentation about the energy performance contract. So thanks for hanging with us.
Well, it's good to see some of the results after having it on our agenda for
Yeah.
some.
It's true.
Anybody have anything for standing building for the December 7th minutes?
Just my lack of familiarity, please. Item number 6, the last sentence, Mr. Banning noticed Johnson Controls working to proposed change order regarding smoke detectors. First time I've heard of smoke detectors, usually it's HVAC or something else. So something going on with smoke that have not been involved.
Depending on the size of the HVAC unit, smoke detectors are required. They're called duct smoke detectors. They actually put in ductwork. So if smoke, especially on the return side, if smoke is in the building, it doesn't get sucked into the HVAC system. The smoke detectors actually shut the system down. So the smoke isn't distributed throughout the whole school or whatever other rooms are on that unit. So it's a safety mechanism. Smoke detectors detect smoke. It shuts the unit down automatically, so that's not distributed throughout the building.
Okay. It's
It's pretty much a code. It's pretty much a code item, and I believe the issue is where the contractor was presenting a change order, which we're not in a position to accept because it's, kind of low hanging fruit. It's expected that those are going to be part of the system.
That would have been my next question.
Is that when you see smoke detectors not yet been resolved, you kind of get your attention. But thank you, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's basically a code requirement, so.
Yeah.
I really didn't have anything else of substance, although I was curious under new business about the building committee going back to in-person meetings, and you've been meeting virtually. I was wondering, and then there was a comment about going hybrid with an in-person and Zoom option. I was just wondering, is that possible to be able to do that?
Yes, you can have in-person meetings.
You could have in-person and Zoom,
Absolutely.
have a hybrid meeting?
Yep, you can have in-person, hybrid, or
For
just.
some reason,
also-
I thought it was you had to either be all Zoom or all.
No.
Are we doing a hybrid?
Yeah, you're doing hybrid right now.
a hybrid now.
Yeah, but our board is here.
Oh, you
But you could have had a board member, you
Yeah.
could have had a board member at home. In fact, we've done that a couple of times for the Board of Selectmen when folks have been traveling and they will
Yeah,
jump
my
on.
misunderstanding of anything, so, okay.
I just had one comment
Yeah,
on
go
something
ahead.
that seemed pretty notable.
Sure.
In section 14, it seems like you're gonna go back to the state and ask them if they'll actually adjust the date that the Baldwin roof was finished. And if I'm reading that right, that sounds like an interesting proposition, and then that would allow us the full reimbursement if we redo the roof then?
Well, it wouldn't have been the full, but it would have been substantially more than what we would have. And actually, Dave participated in the same call. You want to summarize that call we had with the state?
Well, sure. In order to get 75 to 80% reimbursement, the roof needs to be in its 20th year. And the roof was completed in 2006. And I wasn't on the standing building committee at the time, but evidently the Board of Ed took formal action in 2008 to accept the project. And that's the date that the state has. And those 2 years are very significant. Because it puts us, the 2008 date puts us out of the 20-year window and drops the reimbursement. Matt, I don't remember the exact amount, but it's substantial.
Yeah.
I think it may be down in the 30% range.
Sure.
But
Yeah, there's a window, there's a cliff.
I think that horse is out of the barn because we needed this decision before the end of the year, and being that we're just about there and we haven't had the decision from the state. I'm not sure who's monitoring that, to be honest with you.
I think Cliff Garnham is working with that one.
Yeah, okay, I believe you're right. But I'm pretty much in the camp that this horse is out of the barn already, and we're either going to do the project without a reimbursement, or we're going to sit tight until the new state program comes out. Unfortunately, the ZREC program is history as of December 31st. There is a new program that's coming out. I'm vaguely familiar with it. It's not quite as robust, but it'll still be probably worth the town looking at the time. We won't know that till April, to be honest with you.
Thank you for that summary. I didn't realize that. Is there anything else for standing building and Mr. DeMayo? All right, fantastic. Chairman DeMayo, have yourself a wonderful holiday. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Same to you folks as well. Have a blessed one. Be healthy, and we'll talk in the new year.
You got it. See you in January.
Thanks for all you do.
Thank you.
Take care.
All right, be well. Bye-bye.
Okay, item number 2 under correspondence, pension committee. It was a good month in October, I read, saw, so that's great news. But,
Don't open your portfolio tomorrow.
right, exactly.
Yeah, I want you to remember that when you get next month's meeting minutes.
Right, what comes in this last month does
Yeah.
not
Goes right
necessarily
out.
stay.
Right. Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
It's obviously not reflected in the meeting minutes here, but at
Yes.
the December meeting, I brought up the topic, and Bob, this is near and dear to Bob's heart. I brought up the topic about the discount rate and whether or not we should consider dropping it another quarter point as we have for the last 5 years, I believe it is. Yeah, nearly that. There was some discussion from our FIA that said they're hearing that the actuaries are saying, no, 6 is a good number, but there's a lot of discussion that the mid-5s is probably where we need to be in the long run. So Mitch is going to have Milliman run the numbers both ways for us so that we can see what the impact would be. Similar to what we did, I think last year we did a quarter, we did a quarter and a half, an eighth and then a quarter or something. So.
Yeah, I mean, if memory serves, we're near the low end of the municipalities in Connecticut. What we're talking about here is the expected rate of return.
Right.
And, some towns are a little more optimistic, which takes the pressure off the taxpayer in terms of their contributions and or the people in the plan. When we are a little bit more conservative, it protects us from downside disasters. Markets have been good. Nobody's expecting it to last forever. And I think our pension committee has been doing an extraordinary job managing the process.
Great.
Excellent. Anything else on pension?
Is this going to include OPEB?
I'm going right to OPEB right now. So item number 3, OPEB minutes, monthly report.
Fire away.
Fire away.
So my question is about, I just saw a notation in minutes that you're come up with a plan to finance the OPEB account over 5 years and possibly what that'll mean to the budget and the impact on the taxpayer. Do you have any kind of rough numbers as to how much money you'd expect to raise and try and deposit into the OPEB pension fund over the next 5 years?
I do have those numbers, and if you give me a minute, I can look them up on the computer. I don't want to give it to you off my memory because that's not going to work. But the Board of Ed has been provided the numbers for their budget, and we have ours that will be coming forward in your budget. If you want to see those numbers ahead of time, I can certainly send those out to everybody, or I can look them up now, whatever you prefer.
Okay, I just saw the item on the report, so the question came to mind, how much per year? But, why don't you just give them to us when you were,
Yeah,
Good.
I would
You'd
suggest
ask
that.
the
Then we can have some time to look at them and then talk about them after we have a chance to look.
That'd be fine. You'll also see them, we'll have the discussion during the budget season as well.
Right. Okay. Anything else on OPEB?
that was it for me.
Okay. Agenda item number 5, review and accept the report of expenditures for the Board of Education for November 2021. As always, we have Linda Trudeau, but in person this time.
Please.
Thank you. Hello.
And Mr. Dick Hirsch,
Yes.
how are you?
Good, thank you. Well, as you see this report, it's a fairly normal report.
Right.
We expended $4,960,628.75. The fact that we're expending 37.13% is between the last 2 years, it's in that normal range. The revenue in line 2 is reimbursement from the state, which comes to us in 2 installments. So this was the first of 2 installments for the year. On the rest of these, if they're less or more than, or not much more than 1%, I'll just ignore them, for example. The tuition, when we say is lower than the prior year, it was lower by 5%, which is wonderful news, but the order of magnitude of that is so much in flux by virtue of, say, 1 student,
Right.
that it doesn't mean a lot other than it's better than if it was up by 5%, not 10%. But that's what that means. It's and the trend at the moment is holding in that, as you heard earlier today, that we're so far doing relatively well based on prediction of costs this year. Percentage of budget expended on supplies is just about 1%. Capital is lower. It was 3% lower. Transportation is higher than prior year. And the reason for that was that last year we did not have an in-person summer school. So that was the savings. And that, so on that summary page, there's nothing more I want to highlight unless you have questions for either Linda or me.
The only one I noticed was under purchase services, dues and fees was running high. I mean, it was running 81% in 19, over 120, and then was appears to be 100 this year, 100% spent. Is that it runs higher because all the dues and fees are pretty much done by now?
Right, but also included in there is some fees for the IB diploma students.
Yeah.
That we will get reimbursed at
You
the
will?
end of the year.
Okay.
And we've been doing that in that account for the last couple of
All
years.
right. So it comes back down.
It comes back
Okay.
down. Under 100.
Okay.
I had one question, Linda. It looked like unemployment compensation was a little bit of good news. What's driving that? Just not having people leave, or?
So last year, with the unprecedented unemployment that we had, we had everybody filing, there's a look back period, so we had really high claims. And now that is come down, we're back down to more of a normal.
Okay, it sort of worked itself out.
Yes. But last year, last year and a half, we went from having no bills for months at a time to suddenly receiving a bill for over $25,000 for unemployment. Some of them were deemed ineligible because they were people who were actually filing because they have a second job where they had gotten laid off, and so they weren't eligible to collect from us. So we were able to mitigate a lot of those charges, but our unemployment went
Yep.
completely.
Was that the scenario where you were getting paid more from unemployment benefits than your
Right.
regular
And
salary in a
we
lot of
have-
cases?
We have a number of employees who like work for us as well as work for us, like some of the after-school programs. So they got laid off from those programs, and so they went to collect for unemployment, and because we pay them at a certain time, the original claim, we were getting hit with charges. And then when we, corrected it all, it washed out, but
Okay,
there were a lot of people who were filing because of second jobs, not necessarily from working. with
all right,
us.
so we're not seeing that kind of
No.
craziness this year.
No.
Okay.
Anything else on the summary report? Otherwise, we'll just move right down the
To the warrants,
items.
there's just a few things that might be worth pointing out on page 5, under Guilford Dining Services, you'll see two payments of $75,000. That's a transfer of funds from general account to the dining services to make up for a deficit, given that we had such a relatively fewer amount of families making use of people buying meals.
And I'm sorry if I can interrupt you for a second. The dining services is actually been making money.
Right.
The problem is there's a delay in the payment from the state for the per pupil meal the amount we get per pupil meal. So what we filed in September for claims, we didn't receive until the end of November. So that greatly affects their operating cash. So monitoring their cash flows, they were running out of money, even though on paper they're making money.
So this
And
is
it's-
really fronting money.
It's
until the state
fronting
comes
money
back.
until the state finally catches up with funding. So we're hoping by, the end of the year that they can pay that back.
Okay.
Because if you look at our minutes, you'll see that they have made $40,000 in each of the last 2 months.
Yeah, I guess I'll ask
Sorry to
about
interrupt.
transportation. I just saw kind of a higher rate for the special education buses.
Oh, are you on the summary?
Yeah, sorry, I'm back to the summary, I
Okay, all
apologize.
right.
And just was curious what's driving that, I don't know if fuel is tied in, I kind of expected to see fuel bump up.
Which one specifically, special education buses?
Yeah,
Buses?
is that right? Running a little bit higher than previous years?
Yeah, that one's a timing one. Those companies tend to have very odd billing habits. Trying to be nice here. Yeah, I mean,
Didn't bill you for a while.
yeah,
bill you a little faster than you
either they
expect.
send the bill on the first of the following month, or you don't get it for 2 months afterwards. So it's really just a timing thing. The costs have gone up. They do pay for their fuel that's included in their costs. Most of these were bid out a while ago, so the prices are locked in.
Okay.
But
All right,
it's really just a timing.
Okay.
On page 7, you'll see an item for physical therapy trainers. That's a bit weak, subcontract out for trainers for the athletic season rather than hiring anybody full-time, and that's the payment for that.
That was on the warrants.
Yes.
Yeah, one.
On page 8, you'll see something called school outfitters picnic tables. And those are picnic tables that we put out under the tents at both Wheats and Jones elementary schools. And on page 13, you'll see $835,000 going to Guilford. That's the monthly payment for medical. We transfer back to the town.
Back to the school outfitters, how many picnic tables were part of that full purchase?
Don't know if I have the numbers. Let's see if I have it. It's actually a purchase that was done last year. But because everything takes so long to come in, we didn't receive them and pay the bill until now.
I did have one question on, let's see, page 3 of 15. Apple Valley alarms. One of our schools had an intercom put in, and then there was alarm equipment and system that was put in. Was that also at the same school, or was it divided up amongst others, amongst all? They seem to be back-to-back influences, so that's why I was wondering if it was,
No, they did something at all schools.
they did some sort of work, to alarm work.
Big one was. Off the top of my head, I don't remember, and I can't find any.
But it was multiple schools that they did work. It wasn't
Yeah,
just.
so there was a big portion of that at one school, and I will find out for you and, oh, take it back. Licenses and desktops for Cox. So it was the alarm system at Cox, as well as the Jones replacement intercom.
Sounds like an energy bar company.
Anything else on warrants? Anything on the minutes from November 8th? Operations on November 8th? Minutes from November 22nd? That's the workshop, right? And then there was the budget forum, where the public was able to provide their thoughts on December 1st. I believe a couple of us tuned in on that meeting virtually. And heard some of the, and later on during new business, I'll do a real quick recap of what we heard from the joint meeting, the Board of Education, rather than do it here. Usually we do some sort of summary. What we heard, so.
And I apologize for not sending out the tuition report to you. I will send you out a copy tomorrow. But the current projection is that we are going to be $375,486 under budget. It's only a very slight change from last month, about $50,000. So we're still trending very well for the tuition report.
Great.
And I will mail you out a copy tomorrow.
If you all don't mind, I think, I was just thinking about this, maybe if while you're here and the Board of Ed is up, we'll go over what we heard tonight regarding the joint meeting.
Good.
You're all okay with that?
Mhm.
We'll just, while we have you here this way, if you decide you'd like to depart, you can do that, rather than keep you around. As we do every year before the budget season really kicks in, our December and January meetings are joint meetings with the Board of Education. I believe you almost had a full complement of all your Board of Education members for the joint meeting with us. And it's usually just a discussion, very preliminary discussion on what some of the challenges, investments, and maybe some of the positives are. And again, if I miss anything, we were all taking notes, so I'll just very quickly go through this. Some of the pressures that we heard regarding the Board of Ed budget being developed now are medical costs. That there have been several years of decreases, but this is not going to be one of them. That there's double-digit increases possible on the insurance. So that's going to be a pressure or a challenge. The pandemic continues to be a challenge. I don't think at this particular moment need to say anything about the fact that it's not going away. So that continues to be a challenge regarding staffing, quarantining, processing quarantining, in some cases going back to hybrid on a case-by-case basis, not generally, but I guess on some cases. Labor shortage, that's national, maybe even global for labor shortage. but not so much teachers. I did hear Dr. Freeman say the teachers are fully staffed, but it's really aides, long-term substitutes, paras,
long-term subs.
yeah, that those are all short in terms of staffing. And those were like the 3 to 4 major ones, and then investments. Really, the major issue that I heard was maintaining the class sizes. Was one that came up, not increasing or decreasing, but trying to maintain those. The idea or the need for mental health and how it's growing as the days go by, and some administrative supports that may be possible because of the amount of, I guess there were a couple of mandates that have also come through from the state that may require some support. Science coach for a science coach or for STEM is possible. And then I guess the positive, we just kind of alluded to it on tuition, that the tuition has actually been under budget. And we're going to see a good record of the tracking, that why it's below budget, and the fact that it's been narrowing, not so much predictable, but it's been a better trend. And so between those pressures, investments, and positive items, that's what I got out of, did I miss anything out of that? And then I was just gonna hit on what the parents, I guess, said at the meeting on December 1st. But I think that's a fairly quick synopsis. On the parents, there was, and again, what I heard, there was some concern about the reduction in music, not to have any more. The sailing team came forward with some requests. The swim team, girls swim team came forward. Ice hockey was discussed. I think boys and girls ice hockey. The Lakes playground, there were a lot of people that spoke on the playground and the funding of that. And then a little bit on the, I guess some scheduling issues at Baldwin regarding social studies and science. And again, these are just the concerns that parents brought up. And I bring this up, in front of the board and to the public to let you know that, things that are said at the Board of Education meeting do filter to us so that when we deliberate on the budget, this is not all new to us. So we'll be talking about this in February and March and understanding what's behind all of this. So on behalf of the board, I do want to thank the Board of Education coming out so late in the December period. Usually we're a little bit earlier, but this is like right on the cusp of the Christmas holiday. So it was really nice to see everybody also in person. We hadn't done that in a very long time. So I do thank Dick and his colleagues on the Board of Education and of course, Linda. Did I, anything else regarding that joint meeting?
No, we pretty much covered it. Transportation costs, they're in year 4 of the 5-year
Good point.
plan.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, thank you for that.
yeah,
And again, we're going to meet before our next regular meeting with the Board of Education with the superintendent's proposed budget. We see that's presented to us in a binder. We're going to get together again, and then that's when it really starts. I believe there's a couple of meetings into January with the public regarding the superintendent's budget. Then that goes to Board of Education. The Board of Education gets their hands on it, and then we see it in February. So that's the process. So just trying to make sure everybody knows. Every year this comes up, that we're completely informed on everything going on between Board of Education and the town. There was a capital needs presentation that was in November. So we're in it. We're starting the budget season for 22-23. So excellent. Dick, anything else? Linda?
I think we can, given what we heard from the parents, the townspeople in the first meeting, my guess is we're going to hear from more people in the future about the cost of sports.
Mhm.
Namely, there are a lot of sports in which the parents are paying a lot of money. Some parents upwards of $1,000 a year so their kids can participate. And so ultimately, the larger question is, if we think that sports are an important part of a kid's development and want to make sure that it's open to as many kids as possible, how do we provide adequate access to in a financing way such that people aren't precluded from being able to participate simply because the income in their family isn't high enough? That means that we're gonna have to eventually look at how we go about funding all the sports.
Right.
Not to mention that we keep being asked to fund new sports. So sailing is a new sport, for example. Rowing's been around, has 80 students, for example, and parents fund a very large part of that, and that can only go so far. Kids when swimming are worried about safety. As their numbers get up, they need assistant coaches. There's transportation, there's pool time, there's hockey rink time, and those things are escalating. And we're reaching a point where I think people are feeling stressed out about their costs on top of their taxes. So I wouldn't be surprised if we heard more about that in the next couple of meetings.
And as the Board of Ed, and we do as a board, it's all balancing, making sure it's fair across the board and not just certain sports are getting most of the money. And that's a concern, not just for us, but everybody, anyone who's dealing with sports in a community, so.
Well, given that we talked about mental health in the first meeting tonight, the athletes and their parents are going to make a strong claim that it's an important part of their mental health, and that in many cases, it's the saving grace for kids on the balance. And so I wouldn't be surprised if we hear more about that issue than we have before in light of the COVID year and that experience we have now.
And these are all, of course, items that are just coming up now, at least, not the issues themselves, but the costs and the requests that are coming up over the next few months. So we'll have plenty of time to discuss all of that. So definitely appreciate it. Okay, if nothing else for the Board of Education, I will entertain a motion to accept the report of expenditures for the Board of Education for November 2021 in the amount of $4,960,620.75.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Recused? Excellent. Thank you both.
Thanks.
And Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
You the same.
Thank you. Item number 6, review and approve the report of expenditures for the town government for November 2021. Mary Jane.
First of all, I'd like to say I already sent to the,
Go ahead, you're good.
you okay, Bob? I already sent the 5-year plans for the funding for the OPEB to the entire board and Matt. It does include more than 5 years, but you'll see in the first 5 years, the town's contribution starts at $18,000, goes up to $131,000 in 5 years, and continues to go up because the town funds a portion of the OPEB costs. The Board of Ed starts at $89,000, goes up to $455,000 in 5 years, and starts to go down because the Board of Ed does not contribute directly to the cost. The employees pay the full cost, except the Board of Ed has to pay the implicit subsidy, which is any difference between what the employee pays in their premium share compared to what we're actually paying in their costs. So a retiree, say they pay $1,000 towards their insurance once a month. And this is a very simplistic explanation, but they pay $1,000 a month towards their health care, and that's the full cost of their monthly health care for a total of $12,000. But one member of the family has a catastrophic incident, and we end up paying $150,000. That comes out of our costs. So even though the Board of Ed does not pay it directly towards the premium, there is a cost associated because of our self-funding. So you can look at those at your leisure, but you will see them more when we, both the Board of Ed and the town, come forward with our budgets.
Thank you for.
It's one of the good things about being at my laptop.
Multitasking.
Great, so,
Sorry, I think Tracy muted me there for a second.
all good. So do you want to start going through, start with revenue?
Absolutely. You'll see that our revenue is up just slightly from where we were last year. At this time, a couple good things I want to bring your attention to: tax collection. Our tax collection percentage is up, and we are right back where we normally would be at our tax collections at this time of year. One of the items we discussed last time was Park and Rec, and the fact that that is not meeting their budget expectations. I did speak to Rick Maynard. They had one group that faithfully rented the community center every month, and they have not done it through COVID, and they will not be coming back to the community center. So we may see an adjustment in that revenue budget coming in 2023. So we we'll be looking at that line item. So that line item is down to where we expect. But if you have any other specific questions.
How about the finance line? Looks like that's.
Yeah, well, you know,
Yeah.
that we're still not meeting our projected revenue income for that. We're about where we were last month as far as not percentages, because the budget went down, but in about the same amount of money as we brought in this time last year. We did recently receive payment of the loan for the water main project, which the town subsidized over the last couple of years. So that money will be transferred back into the general fund and will add to the amount that we can invest. But we had investing similarly to how we always have. We're just not making our quotas here.
Don't have any other questions on my end. Anybody else on revenue? Okay. Expenditure?
Expenditures, we are exactly where we were at this time last year. And if you go through the departments, you'll see that pretty much every department is about where they were last year and right where we expect them to be. I do want to speak to capital. Since capital is overdrawn at this time, we have a number. First of all, we have $600,000 worth of encumbrances, but a number of expenses in that line are related to ARPA that have been approved by ARPA funding that the funding has not carried over to here yet. Also, IT has a number of software upgrades in their number that will be coming from the committed fund balance for technology. And that's specifically the EnerGov permitting system over at Town Hall South. It's a very high price tag for all of that, and it's all showing here. We also have a couple items in here that we set money aside, carried in force, that will need to be transferred out. And also a couple of road projects are coming through here that there's committed funds for. So even though it's showing overdrawn here, as soon as each of those projects are complete, we will be making those transfers.
Thank you for the clarification. Anything else on expenses? Don't think I had any. We can move on to medical.
Well, we had a really low medical claim month in the month of November, not quite $600,000. We did receive a few more catastrophic claims, bringing us up to 8.3%, but we are showing at the moment a projected surplus of over $600,000.
Mary Jane, do you think the medical will correct next month? Do you think there's a lag at all in claims?
There shouldn't be much of a lag in claims, only a few days, depending on the end of the month that, I don't think so. I don't think there's a lag in the payments. If anything, there's a lag of people, didn't go that month, but, we try to, the payments come in every Thursday. So, depending on what the last day of the month was, we might have missed just a couple of days.
If history is any indication from last year, the November is seeming to be a little bit lower, and then January would be lower because it's probably reflective of December. So, we might have a little bit of a hit next month, and then it picks up February, March, April, May.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's tough going into
Maybe the holiday,
holidays.
November stops people from going. I'm not sure.
I know several people that stopped them from going.
January, they all go to the gym, they all go to the doctor. See Planet for the Planet Fitness in January.
That's a lot.
If I only had a crystal ball when it came to the
So they
medical
don't have to
fund.
walk.
Exactly.
Is that withdrawal for the OPEB fund from the fund balance surplus, did we already take that, or are we planning on
Yes.
taking it?
Oh, yes, that's already reflective in the OPEB trust balance that you looked at earlier in your meeting.
It's already earning money for us in that account.
Okay. Warrants. Special fund to start. Nothing caught my attention in special fund. Really, nothing caught my attention in, I think, any of them.
I never see HVAC again, though.
Just a quick note, Mr. Chairman, on Zanella's construction, should be getting to the end of payments for them. That's the Sawmill River Bridge, which opened up a little over a week ago.
Right.
So, been completed.
Nice.
If nothing on warrants, then I believe we have nothing left for the town to discuss. We've discussed it all. Yep. All right, if nothing else, then I will entertain a motion to approve the report of expenditures of the town government for November 2021 in the amount of $6,940,393.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, I don't mean to correct you.
Yeah.
That would be the total for both the Board of Ed and the town.
Did I add the wrong number?
I think you want to, I think you want to approve
did I-
2,118,000.
Oh, hold
Sound
on,
better.
If I had the number right.
hold on, hold on. See, that's what happens when you're preparing. You're a little quick. I think, oh yeah, look at that. Hey, want to try again? I'm going to correct that motion. And I'd like to entertain a motion of a new number of $2,118,283.
So moved again.
Second again is amended.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions, recusals? Mr. First Selectman, thank you.
You're welcome. Just proving I wasn't asleep.
I don't know if that's proven,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's proven for me, so that's not good. Thank you. Okay,
You're welcome.
item number 7. Consider and take possible action to transfer $538,182 from unassigned fund balance to fund balance committed to future debt payments. On the next couple of items, we have the initial transfer request from Mary Jane, and then the official memo from the Board of Selectmen from this morning. Mary Jane, do you want to discuss this particular transfer? I'm pretty sure, I know, I'd rather have you explain it, but I'm pretty sure I could do it as well.
That's fine. First of all, I apologize. This should have come forward with all of the other fund balance transfers earlier, and I missed this, so it's all on me. As we have done in the past, when we refund our bonds, we have made a significant amount of premiums over the past few years, and we've used those premiums during the height of the bonding for the high school to mitigate the tax increase and the mill rate increases as those bonds came due. We, this past year, received credits and have a balance of $538,000 there that I would like to move to fund balance for that same purpose. Even though our debt payments are going down over the next few years, they're not significant drops, and this money could certainly help our mill rate increases for other things. You know, by using this money, we could reduce those. So since that has been our practice over the past few years, I'm requesting that this money be used in a similar fashion.
So in simple terms, it's really just taking it from unassigned floating and unassigned fund balance to committing it to debt service.
Right, because otherwise that is just considered revenue to the town through the bonds. So this way we can put it in the fund balance for this purpose and use it to offset future debt payments.
I have a question just to make sure I'm clear on this. This is actually going to go to retire some debt early?
No, to
No, it
offset
would,
that- Offset
To
that.
offset that.
Instead of having tax dollars pay, it's this money paying?
Just going to
It's
offset
committed-
the normal
it's-
payments?
Yes.
correct.
Debt savings into paying debt.
It's so taxpayers don't have to come up with 538,000.
Right.
I do like it, but I also like the idea of just retiring the debt early. Accelerate some principal payments. How much interest
an
do we
option?
make on the money when it sits in this committed fund?
Well, you just read my revenue report. You tell me.
It's,
I didn't look that closely. I don't know the rate that we're getting on the tax money, but it's not what it used to be. That I know from the trend.
I'm not getting any more than you are in your checking account, so.
So, you know, wouldn't it make more sense to retire the debt early and avoid the interest?
that becomes a whole refunding issue.
It wouldn't be
Yeah,
efficient.
that's a legal question.
So we don't have prepayment options on.
Yeah.
And if you did, you'd have to rewrite the
Refund.
bond agreements. You'd have to get permission from the bond holders. And you'd have to pay a premium over what we owe on the date.
So the money
So
goes
if
to
you
the lawyer.
retire at a premium, instead of paying 100 cents on the dollar, they want 100, 102, 103. Bottom line is it becomes inefficient. The most efficient thing to do is not ask the taxpayers to come up with it. Just take this and put it where their money would normally go.
Is there anything else in this committed fund, or would this be the first deposit into this fund?
The committed fund already exists. As I said, we used it during the peak years of the high school bonds. As Matt and I would report and make our presentation for our budget, we always noted that we used premiums to bring the budget down for the debt. It didn't bring down how much we had to pay on the debt. It only brought down how much was reported in the budget because we used these savings to offset those.
How quickly will we apply it? Will we absorb the whole $500,000 or so in 1 year? or-
No, we'll come to you guys with a recommendation. You guys can certainly determine how much you want to apply, which has typically been the case when we talk about these. One of the core concerns that I've always had about using one-time revenue sources is when those one-time revenue sources run out, you're going to be back to asking the taxpayers to potentially increase what they need to pay, because those are those one-time adjustments that if you can't replicate them the following year, the tax increase comes back. one of the things that we decided to do with the use of these funds was to start to apply these and then taper off on the use of these funds, or as they expire, as the debt service load is going down. So it's a correlation. We can, preferably dollar for dollar, that you take, one less dollar of premiums because you've got one less dollar of bonded costs projected out over time. So it's Mary Jane's done, I think, has done
Yeah,
a remarkable
I-
job
I
over the past
spent-
few years balancing that. And
Yeah,
if I
I
made a mistake in
spend-
how I explained that, please
No,
clarify.
you're fine. I spend hours going through those numbers, trying to come up with the best scenario for the town of Guilford, using the money in different denominations year over year to try to keep the peaks and the valleys about, to keep it about the same every year in our debt service. You've probably heard me preach over the past 5 years I've been here that I'm typically looking for, debt and capital to always be about the same amount each year, because it's best for the taxpayer to have the same amount year over year. It's easier to put that into the budget. So that's what we try to do with this money. We try to even out what our debt payments are year over year. So one year I might take 20,000, the next year I might take 300,000, and the next year might be 50,000, but it's in a sequence to even out what we're actually paying in debt.
Does it affect just the town side of the budget, or is it the Board of Ed?
This is a separate line item. The debt service is basically considered the third leg of the stool.
Right, but if you're
No.
using it to kind of offset what the taxpayers need to pay for the overall, but is it the overall budget?
It's the
that it-
overall budget
okay.
that gets
Right.
impacted. You're absolutely, yeah. Because we do not charge off the debt service by who owns the debt,
Okay.
school debt versus town debt.
Okay.
We've always
Yeah,
had that.
Amy,
So
So Amy, when you see the budget as we come forward, we have different line items for different bonding authorizations. And some of them might say GAS for Guilford High School, but all the debt is on the town side of the budget. We do not segregate between the two.
And I know it's misleading because your report shows bonded debt service under the town budget. It's already in there. Right?
Generally speaking, though, because of the large purchase of school, we're in a phase where our debt servicing is in decline now, right? We've reached our peak and it's declining, right?
Right.
So to keep it even would be kind of an odd way to explain it. Do you mean to kind of keep it on a smooth trajectory down?
Right, but we slowly eat away at the premiums, so they're not going to be available for a longer period, for much longer, as in accordance with what we have been spending. How much, do you remember how much we allocated this year for premiums?
Nothing.
Right.
Zero. But Jonathan, also keep in mind that every year we go out for additional bonding. So when you look at, the plan until 2034, when our debt goes down to nothing, it's a slow down. It's a slow going down, but each year we bond more money. So it kind of brings it back up a little bit. And so I take those little peaks and try to keep them, smooth them out.
Yeah, the one thing you don't want to do is have it go off a cliff. So what you want to really do is you want to have it come down, preferably, but you also want it to have it smooth out, because otherwise, if it goes off a cliff and you got to add anything, then it's a huge spike like the high school one. And then that does numbers to a mill rate.
Right, but just keep in mind, if you go back and look at our
down.
budgets, because of these premiums, we didn't have that huge spike. We were able to keep that down. The increases would have been much higher for not last year, but the 3 years prior to that would have been huge increases in debt service if not for these premiums.
All right, the cliff down is nice, but it's the cliff up that the
Cliff up.
the public never likes, yeah.
The cliff down, okay.
Yeah.
This is really just, it's going from, general unassigned to something committed to debt, which is the best use of it to be able to pay down the debt, so.
And particularly since we have a unassigned fund balance that is in excess of 10% of our operating budget, we have clearly the luxury and the cap room to do exactly that.
It's a very good use.
And it's derived,
And offset it later on.
and it's derived from debt financing, so it's appropriate that it goes back that way instead of into another category.
All three. And when the recommendation comes of how much to use, then we have that ability to look at it and discuss it.
Perfect.
So,
I still prefer giving the money right back to the taxpayer, than making some war chest over here that doesn't earn any
we
interest.
know you do, but this is,
But we are actually, this is one of those areas where we are giving it back to the taxpayer. It may not be as one lump sum, but it's done over a period of
More
time.
attractive than just flat out spending on something. It still would be nice to just return it to them. They get the best bang for the buck.
Well,
Go
if we did that, and then we had to ask for more money back in a subsequent year, we'd say,
Right.
Mr. Charter says, you gotta come up with more money. I don't know if you'd like.
Well, that's the nature of the budgeting, we have expenses, we buy a school, sometimes taxes go up, but it would be nice if taxes go down.
Don't believe me, I agree.
Yeah.
As I used to complain to my wife, or when my wife used to complain to me when I was sitting in Mike's chair, how come you keep raising taxes? Believe me, I'd rather not.
all right, with that being said, I would like to go ahead and entertain a motion to transfer $538,182 from the unassigned fund balance to fund balance committed to future debt payments.
So moved.
Second.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, I would just like to
Discussion.
specifically add to that
Yes.
motion that it be as of 6/30/21, so it can be reflected
Just-
in my audit.
thank you. I
very
will amend it to add that would happen 6/30/21.
So moved.
And second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Excellent. Thank you. Moving on to number 8. Discuss and take possible action on salary budget transfers for fiscal year 21-22 due to union contract finalizations. We knew this was coming. This is no surprise. This happens every year. Mary Jane, would you like to summarize?
Sure, we had contract negotiations finalized this year. As you know, we set money aside in an account called Reserve for Personnel in the employee benefits line item. We put an amount in there that we think will cover the union contract finalization for our salaries, and the salaries themselves are put in at 0% increase. We have almost the use of almost the entire $200,000 with the list that I have provided. We do still have the fire department budget contract that has not been finalized, may not be finalized until next fiscal year. We also have money in an assigned fund balance account for Reserve for Personnel. As you know, some years we put the money in, the contract doesn't get negotiated, and then we set that money aside in a committed fund, very similarly to how we did just now with the debt payments. If that fire department budget were to be ratified before the end of the fiscal year, we would dip into those funds. But I'm requesting these right now, and we will be adjusting those budgets immediately. And when you see the budget presentations coming forward from the departments, they will be compared to these numbers, not the original numbers in the budget. So you will have a clearer picture of the increase year over year.
What do we have left in the reserve? Personnel?
About 232,000, give or take a little bit.
Okay. Any other questions? Otherwise, I will, let's see, entertain a motion to transfer $199,058 from reserve to personnel to the various salary line items outlined by the finance director due to union contract finalizations dated December 13th, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Do I need to amend that? Do I need to say anything about? No.
Okay, it's not a June.
Is this also June 30th, 21?
Nope, today. It's this year's budget.
Today, it's this year's budget. Okay, just wanted to make sure. Okay.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Great. Item number 9, consider and take possible action on the use of American Rescue Plan funds for a Shoreline Chamber of Commerce pilot program for business coaching.
Did we lose D?
It appears that we did.
Okay, let me see. There's D.
She was there and then she wasn't, and she's back again.
I've got to say, I was a little bit alarmed about this because I was a little worried. I'm not a big fan of the chamber, but it seems to me it's a little bit reinventing the wheel when we've got SCORE.
Right.
Got
We'll let D talk about that.
down the road.
Yeah, we'll let D talk about it.
Oh,
I'll just tee this up.
great.
Mr. Chairman, Dee Jacob and I had some conversations shortly after her installation as president of the Shoreline Chamber of Commerce about a program, a business coaching program. So what happened this morning is a presentation, well, a couple of things happened. One, the Economic Development Commission approved this pilot program as put together by Dee, and then the Board of Selectmen approved it also this morning. So, and Bob, we've had some discussions about SCORE and why we would use SCORE and where SCORE comes into play, et cetera. But Dee, do you want to move forward?
Sure. SCORE offers a mentoring program. That mentoring program, the business person has to travel to a common location. The mentor is not necessarily from our area, and they do not come in and help assess the business. So this is how this differs from SCORE. SCORE offers many wonderful elements, and from an ongoing basis, their mentoring program might be the correct thing as a secondary or third step. But what we're trying to do is help a business to 1,000-foot view and make sure that they're focusing on the right issue, going after marketing when it's really a sales issue, et cetera. And we have a number of local people in town who either are executives or professional consultants who care about our community, care about our community's business success, that we believe can go ahead and provide both the expertise and the willingness to try to help a local business.
Okay. Do you want to just talk a little bit more about the program itself? Because I'm not sure that your memo made its way here.
Sure. So the Chamber Economic Boost Program is a threefold program. Consists of the first part is coaching for business success, which is 1,000-foot view done by local experts with the business owner that, again, is aimed at helping to assess not only the a right area of business focus and acknowledgement of business focus and some direction on where to go next steps. The second series is a YouTube-like, very short video series, 5 to 7 minute videos. Those of you who have been business owners know that you don't have time to sit down for an hour-long webinar, an hour-and-a-half webinar. So we're trying to come up with a series, again, using local experts in our region to film some how-tos that could be quick resources to our business owners. And the third piece is then helping to harness the information for grant availability that's developing in a number of places to, again, help feed and help our businesses apply for those grants and get funding. The seed money that we're looking for, a pilot program, is done individually in each of the 3 towns of our region. We cover Guilford, Brantford, and North Brantford. The funds being requested from Guilford would be used to support businesses only in Guilford, and the businesses do not have to be members of the chamber. The funds largely will go to supporting a nominal stipend for the coach. And the reason we think this is important, that allows us to put boundaries and parameters around what a coach can and can't do. We don't want this to be a route for coaches to build leads for their business. This is really about trying to get an impact for the business in the area.
It sounds like part of the program is individualized to a specific business and part of it is general, like the videos would be for general knowledge? Is that?
Yeah, the request for 25,000 is not for the videos. This is only for
Just the coaching.
just the coaching piece.
The
Yeah, I was just trying
impact
to
would be on 28 to 29 businesses and this pilot program. We figure about 1.5 visits per business.
Do you want to talk about participation from the other communities that make up the Shoreline Chamber?
Sure. We have, I've met with EDC in North Branford. They held a special meeting last week that we went through and discussed our proposal to go through their route. We are formalizing a presentation to them to have that go through their town manager, then to their town council. I've met with Jamie Cosgrove and Mike and Perry Maresca, the EDC person in Branford, and we are starting a similar route. So the intention is we will run, though, under a common umbrella, 3 separate programs with the town to their degree of funding to apply coaches to businesses.
Excellent. Thank you for the description, for the information, clarity. I appreciate it. Does anybody else have anything else regarding this? I know this is, the only question I guess I would have is, you know, a pilot program usually means a pilot program, and then there's, you know, what's the expectations after the pilot program ends? Is there more money that would be looked at to come from this plan, or is it seed, like I heard,
Yeah,
seed money
Seed money.
to then start to generate funds from other avenues? Just wondering what requests might follow this after the pilot program.
Well, it's as Dee and I were talking this morning, there are other grant opportunities available. There is DECD money coming down the pike from the most recent federal funding for economic recovery. And D, there are several other, I think you mentioned a couple other types of grants that you might be looking for to sustain this, if in fact it is successful. On the other hand, there's nothing to prevent them from coming back and saying, you know, this program has worked or it hasn't worked. If it's worked, would you consider using additional ARP? Would you consider using additional ARP funding to keep this thing going to the benefit of our businesses?
What sort of time frame are you looking at getting this up and running?
D?
So we anticipate starting to put the criteria, marketing, criteria for the coaches, recruiting the coaches, criteria for the application, taking into account reporting requirements for ARPA, and all that will start in January upon funding in an applicable town. We will look to be rolling out in the first quarter, the first wave of applications. We'll actually go on site and visit many businesses to make them aware of this program, and if needed, help them fill in the application. And we'll go through a rolling monthly review of matching candidates to coaches so that we can go after some of the more needy businesses earlier in the process. So we're trying to ensure that we have the greatest impact that we can early on. So I see this rolling out over 6-7 months, assuming everything can go according to schedule. And the businesses have an interest. If the businesses don't have an interest, then of course, then we would come back to you and say, we don't need this money. However, when we presented this in rooms with people who are from businesses, they go, I need that, I'd like that. So we think that we'll have ample applications to pursue this. We also think it's the type of program that ultimately might get some corporate sponsorship for to keep the ball rolling.
This program sounds very interesting. I'm sort of a fan of business incubation, and I like the program itself. But I have to step back again, Matt. And I keep repeating this message each meeting. I'm trying to challenge the Board of Selectmen to come up with a way to get those American Rescue Funds to people who are directly economically injured, from the lockdowns and some of the other issues that affected us with COVID.
I would,
You know,
This-
those
I would say businesses
tenants
are
and
definitely,
landlords
Yeah,
who
this
are
is
going
one, this is
broke.
one of, this is
Yeah.
one of those areas. It's one we've
I mean,
identified.
How is this gonna help businesses that, went under, that are no longer in operation?
None of us are gonna help businesses that went under
Tenants who, why not target?
because they're no
businesses
longer
who went under?
entities. They're no longer entities.
Why not have the business owners make some kind of claim against the American Rescue Funds because they've been severely injured by?
Because they need to continue to stay,
Lockdowns.
they need to continue to stay in business for us to utilize the funds with them.
and it benefits the
I
town to
don't
have those
understand it.
businesses
Why
keep
can't we give
going.
it directly to the owners of some of these defunct businesses?
There's a significant number of challenges legally with doing that, with giving these funds to businesses that are no longer in existence. There are federal guidelines around this. Now, there are programs that we can implement. We're currently working with the Guilford Foundation to develop a series of programs that will benefit individuals, families, businesses that have been impacted, as well as nonprofits. We are currently in the process of looking at hiring a consultant to develop and manage those programs, because that kind of consultative is a eligible reimbursed item under the American Rescue Plans. So we're slowly starting to roll some stuff out as we see what the Treasury guidance, and by the way, we still don't have the final Treasury rule, has not yet been issued. So we're still going along supposition with input from CCM, Council of Governments, Representative Delores' office, Representative Murphy's, Senator Murphy and Senator Blumenthal's office as to the best estimates of what we can use these funds for.
Now, you kind of raise an interesting spectrum here that it may not be possible to give money to people who are directly injured from the lockdowns or.
Yes, assuming the programs come into play the way we think they are, we could give it to individuals, all right? Now, I'm not sure we're going to be giving this to individuals so that they can reopen or reestablish businesses during the process. We don't have the final guidance on what we can and cannot do for particularly individuals that have lost a business.
So in the meantime, we're trying to do something.
We're trying to walk before we.
Businesses that need it, that are in existence now, that we know that the guidelines are met.
So, my problem is just in some of the ideas that are presented. I won't say that they don't have merits, but I'm just saying that some of the ideas that are presented, I haven't seen an example of one that's
We haven't developed them yet.
it's gonna have this vision that I see of trying to really reimburse for someone who actually got economically hit.
And the trick is going to be to identify the programs and build the criteria. I don't have the staff to do that right now, Jonathan. So we are going to be bringing a consultant on board to assist us with that process. And as I said, one of the avenues I'm looking at is to run through a sub-recipient agreement with the Guilford Foundation for them to take on the role of developing those programs. So that it's not Jonathan Trotta and Matt Hoy deciding if Bob Hartman gets money. It is a formalized program. So that's a stage we're in. at
Yeah,
this
I mean,
point.
I can imagine there's gotta be, a fair bar to determine if someone's really been impacted, but, some kind of program where, hey, I did get evicted, I did lose my home, my business did go under.
well, speaking from the business community, I think that the small businesses often feel under-supported by the town, that nonprofits get a lot of play and individual children and seniors. So I like that this program is going to help the businesses that survived but are not thriving to hopefully
Yeah.
thrive in the future. And that's going to keep Guilford as a whole intact in a lot of ways. So,
A lot of
And
small business owners did not go to school for business.
right, they do their craft and not the business. Yeah.
They need help, they
this
need
is
some sort of guidance in terms of how to.
exactly what they
structure
need.
business.
And that is, to your point, that is an important piece, is to help those businesses that are currently still in business right now, because the last thing we want are empty storefronts. That's our grand list.
Right.
That impacts the Guilford taxpayer. So you can look at it from that perspective as well,
That point is well taken, but, my heart is out to these individuals.
Oh,
It's-
yeah.
Lives are in
We all, yeah.
Yeah, we all
But we don't
agree.
want more of them either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not that we none of us disagree with you. It's just, we need to have better guidelines to be able to understand how to use that money in a way that we're not so sure yet it's, legal to do that. So.
Is some kind of distribution of those American Rescue Funds eventually going to go towards some program that helps these individuals?
Absolutely. That's why, that's one of the 4 tranches that I mentioned. Individuals, families, businesses, nonprofits, both social service agencies and cultural. Those are the four major buckets that we're looking at to develop programs for.
And I think we have what, 3 million over the.
We have 6.5, but some of that is already being appropriated for, we've got some additional economic development funding that we approved in September, I think, building of a website, a bunch of things to start to support business. The idea, the primary focus right now is to try to ensure that the businesses that we have in place stay in place. That is the primary concern right now, as part of the economic development, economic recovery, not development. So,
I also think to your point, Jonathan, though, is that it's important that a structure is in place before monies are put out there. You have to be able to track it. We have to be able to know where it is. It can't just be dispersed not willy-nilly, but you know what I mean? There has to be a plan in place.
there has to be a discernible criteria for
Yeah.
eligibility. Not, I didn't make as much money as I did last year. No, that's not going to cut it. There's going to have to be, and actually the Guilford Foundation put together a COVID relief plan that they ran through Women and Family Life Center, where folks had to apply and detail the damage that had been done to them. So we don't want to necessarily reinvent the wheel. We'd like to replicate some of the functions, some of the pieces of that program, and extend it to the American Rescue stuff.
Yeah, for people didn't make as much money as the prior year. That's what PPP is all about, which are forgivable loans.
Yep.
And the nature of this request, you're talking about welfare or compensation or handouts. This is not the nature of that request, so it's kind of for a different day. But there are other ways to
get it to be. There are going to be other ways to get it in the hands of
there are other vehicles. This is that vehicle.
I don't know if you'd call it welfare. I mean, the government told these businesses that they couldn't operate, and they've gone under, and people have lost their livelihood. That's different from welfare, in my opinion.
Call it compensation.
But I'd like to focus on these people that got dramatically hurt first, before we help the people whose businesses survive.
And one of the challenges is going to be identifying those people, Jonathan, and establishing the criteria to determine who has been hurt.
I agree.
The business failure rate in Guilford is not as high as you think it is. It is not as high as you think it is. And I know Sherry's been tracking those businesses that have gone out, and they're if you think about downtown, there haven't been that many. Okay, for instance, Centros went out of business. All right, that was a sort of a planned retirement. There was the little the kitchen store that is now the jewelry store. All right. She's 78 years old, didn't want to sign a new 3-year lease, which is what the terms that were being presented to her. So and those stories happen all the time.
Related to the lockdown, obviously, it's not anything that we would want to consider, but I think.
Well, again, I don't want to gloss over the pain and suffering that our business owners have had, but I'd be hard pressed to tell you, other than a couple of those instances, who is no longer in business in a retail fashion in our community.
I can think of 3 businesses that maybe did, but out of hundreds.
Right. And the trick,
Get into the specifics of.
the trick is also identifying those home-based businesses, right? Because that's a huge cottage industry now, where folks are actually literally running home-based businesses, not just working from home, working remotely. So we don't even have a good count or know who some of those people are because they don't participate in the Chamber of Commerce. They're not in our constant contact list of business contacts here in town, or they're not part of the Downtown Merchants Association. So identifying some of those people is somewhat difficult.
You know, you have to ask the guys who do their taxes.
Yeah.
Okay, so with all this, and again, I want Jacob, thank you very much for being on the call and relating all this to us. At this point, I entertain a motion to use $25,000 of the American Rescue Plan funds for the Shoreline Chamber of Commerce pilot program for business coaching.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions. Very good. Dee, thank you again
Thank you, Dee.
Thank
for all-
you.
for all your work on this too.
And
Thank you.
and quite honestly, I said this morning, I hope Dee's coming back to us and says, this program was so successful, you need to throw more money at it.
Right. Yeah, good luck. No, seriously, that sounded a little sarcastic. It was good luck in this venture because I know it's needed.
Easy.
Thank you. Okay, item number 10 is committee reports, anything on building permits. Moving on to item number 11, old business, anything under old business. I don't have anything.
I have a question, is our tour, the town tour,
That is-
like an old business?
It is an old business item that will come up again probably next month and maybe the month after, but
The elderly.
we're, I don't know if you remember
Daylight
from
savings.
last month, I think I brought it up, that we're waiting until there's more daylight and it's
Oh, okay.
warmer.
All right.
And once that happens, then we'll schedule something.
The spring tour.
April, May,
Right.
April, May. Item number 12, new business.
Mr. Chairman, I have one
You want to put something under old?
new business, please.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, the first meeting in January, not January, but December, we had Sherry Cody, our Economic Development Coordinator, who is now as full-time split between Madison and Guilford. I had her make a presentation to the board relative to the projects that are going on. Is that something you would like a summary of on a monthly basis? Because she'll make that report the first Board of Selectmen meeting of the month. And she typically prepares a document. Is that something you guys would like to have shared or even entertain having her
I didn't
present?
create more work for anybody, but I think
Well, she prepares a monthly report for the EDC and then is now actually presenting that to the Board of Selectmen. So.
Well, if she's already doing it, I'd be interested in it.
Yeah, exactly. I want.
Yeah, I agree. I
I
don't,
mean, if it was quarterly or something,
Right, so we don't need it monthly.
I'd be
Okay.
fine with that.
I recommend quarterly.
Quarterly, it's
Great.
fine.
Yeah.
It'll be, it'll be good going into budget season 2 to hear some of those things. I think quarterly is perfectly fine, but
Thank you.
I think we're all in agreement, okay? Thank you.
I have something under new business, sort of.
Okay, sure.
I keep pressing for some kind of accounting for all these grant monies and where they're going. And I think Linda last time had an exhibit for our last meeting. I didn't see it this meeting. But you were quantifying all the,
I do have that. I will send that out to you tomorrow as well.
oh, okay. And then I think I asked if the town would do something like that as well.
We've got
Yeah.
something similar. Mary Jane, I know you prepared the document for me.
I
on-
sent that document from the CRF funds, I sent
Yep.
to the board already.
Oh, I missed that one. I'm sorry.
It
That was
was-
out this month?
It was after the last month's meeting, I think it was requested. I sent it to both the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance. I can certainly send it to you again, Jonathan.
I apologize. I just probably missed it. You probably did.
Okay, well, if you don't find it, please let me know. I'll send it to you.
Sent right after the capital plan
Right.
presentations. So
I think
it was that same day, I think. Great, thank you. Yes,
Okay.
we'll get that.
Thank you.
The only notable item under new business, besides the last one, which will of course be happy holidays, the joint budget. Oh, sorry, I'm reading off the notes that I had from before. We already did that. CCM, newly elected officials day. I know that I had received something from CCM, sent it to the board. I know I've gone to it before with other board members, and I think a few of us were interested in going. The one thing I found about that, this particular one is a newly elected officials day, not just a workshop on municipal budgeting 101. What I did see, it was about, had like a bunch of things wrapped up into it, meetings, ethics, FOI, requests, and then what to look forward to in this budget cycle and some of the things to be aware of. So I've always found it very, not just for newly elected officials. So if you're, if any of the board members are available, January 8th, it's a Saturday from, I think, 9 to 3. If you can make it, great. It just, and Amy, I know you've already said that you signed up, which is great. I think you're going to learn a lot in that one day. So, so anybody else, just want to make sure you got the message. I have nothing else under new business except for we're at a point where it is Christmas time. So want to wish my colleagues, everybody in the room, Linda, Matt, everybody on screen.
Thank you.
Tracy, Dee's still with us, Mary Jane. A Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year. I hope those who, if there were anybody that celebrated Hanukkah, they had a wonderful Hanukkah. And so hope you all stay safe and healthy during this second Christmas of pandemic, of COVID, but I think we're all making it through acceptably to be here at the table. So Merry Christmas to all.
Merry Christmas too.
Merry Christmas to you as well, Jerry.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
So
Second. All right. All in favor?
Non-debatable motion.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Thanks, guys.